of this observation, and I think that's one of the reasons why he didn't publish it. And then I will discuss all the possibilities. And the second one is probably even more curious. Wait a minute. Is this, and that is that there was a rather even stronger statistically significant association by chi-square analysis with this following observation. There was a tendency to have a high college grade point average in the students choosing the lifestyle specialty. Notice that in the lifestyle column that there were very few students that had a college GPA less than 3.1, whereas in surgery, it's 8 to 6, it's 46, it's 46. He enjoyed it, and that's why you're laughing. I mean, he got a kick out of this finding. It has also, of course, many. It's not what it looks like. I mean, there are many reasons for it, but it was statistically significant. And the third observation was also has more meaning than it looks like on the surface. But should I go back yes, the women tended to choose cognitive specialties, whereas the men tended to choose the lifestyle specialties. If you notice in on the lifestyle, it's 23% female and 40% male. It's more male than female, whereas in the cognitive, it's actually more female than in male. Another of these curious observations that fit in with David's interests in this, it shows his interest in the students, and it shows his interest in psychology and the psychological study. And the last observation is, I'm directing from side. The last observation was that there was an extremely close correlation between the GPA and the medical college admission test result, which you might expect. But there was also this equally strong correlation, 0.23 with the same p-value, between the college GPA and the final sentence in David's Dean's letters. That has been alluded to before, that David in his final sentence in the Dean's letter used some word, certain words to describe the student. I don't remember the exact terminology. He was outstanding or excellent or good or whatever it was, but he also supplied with his letters a code indicating in the past how many of the student letters that he wrote had outstanding as the final word or whatever, so that the people that got the letter had some rough way of ranking the students in the class. And that this ranking of David's turned out to be very close to a figure that he, I don't think, paid much attention to when he actually wrote the Dean's letters. So now, having said all of this, I will just close with one other observation about David, and that is that in one of the letters to the editor that he wrote, he quoted from the Irish poet William Butler Yeats, the foremost poet in the English language of his time. And the lines that he quoted were from the last two lines of a poem called The Second Coming, meaning the second coming of Christ, and which go as follows. Why does this rough beast its hour come round at last, that slouches towards Bethlehem to be born? Now, the rough beast in this poem is the Antichrist. Without going into an explanation of what actually is involved, I think the poem serves, first of all, to show that he was a scholarly man, because this was not a poem, a Mother Goose rhyme. Not many people, unless they study it, would understand what was meant by the rough beast that slouches towards Bethlehem. But second of all, that he was deeply interested in morality, just as he was interested in the students. And the moral message in this poem is that there is a danger that the world will be taken over by the Antichrist and by evil forces, by immoral forces, and that we all must try to do the best we can with that. Thank you.
Perfect example of David's deep interest in the students medicine at Vanderbilt, who has come here specially today for his service. He's going to speak to us.
Thank you, Ellen. Many of you do not know me. Some of my former teachers in the audience do. I asked special permission to address you this afternoon. I'm not on the program, but there's a special aspect of David Kaplan that I'm not hearing in these formal remarks, and I thought I'd like to just share with you some of the students' love for this man. I met David for the first time when I was at the University of Rochester as a fourth-year student, thinking about what to do with my life in the late 60s at a time of great travail in the United States. I was thinking of being a history professor, and I spent an hour and a half being interviewed by David Kaplan, after which I decided I wanted to be a doctor, just like David. And I came to downstate after I was accepted at many other places because David was here. And I interviewed with him other students for 4 years as a member of the admissions committee with David. Does anybody remember David's first question? It was, what do you want to talk about today? I'm a member of the admissions committee at Vanderbilt. I have 3 chairs in my office. Mine, the students, and an empty chair with David Kaplan. And I asked the first question as I interviewed, what do you want to talk about today?
Thank you very much, Al. Dr. Rosemary Neuner, who is also a faculty member in the rheumatology division, is going to be our next speaker.
It was through David Kaplan's efforts that Downstate's Division of Rheumatology became a major participant in a series of NIH-sponsored multi-center prospective and clinical trials called Cooperating Systemic Studies of Rheumatic Diseases. It never failed to amaze me how many people that I have met at various conferences and trial meetings who reported having had the pleasure of working with me on some great project or study. One of Dr. Kaplan's last big endeavors was procuring the MIRA trial contract from the NIH for us. MIRA stands for minocycline rheumatoid arthritis. Minocycline is a member of the tetracycline family of antibiotics. Over the last 20 to 25 years, there have been reports in the rheumatic literature that this drug possesses some anti-inflammatory mechanisms that include the inhibition of collagenase activity, scavenging of superoxygen radicals, and the inhibition of phagocytosis by polys and phospholipase A. It also has been reported that minocycline may also inhibit lymphocyte proliferation and cytokine production. Dr. Kaplan played a major role in the MIRA trial design, which was essentially a 48-week randomized double-blind placebo-controlled study. Our primary outcomes were meaningful or greater than 50% improvement in joint swelling and tenderness. Joint swelling improved to a statistically significant degree in the minocycline patients versus the placebo group. Although this was the only primary outcome to show any statistical improvement, some other secondary parameters which were also looked at, which I don't have a slide of, also showed that the minocycline patients had statistically significant improvements in lowering of their SED rates and rheumatoid factors when present, with a rise of the hematocrit levels. In conclusion, minocycline was found to be an efficacious modality in the treatment of early rheumatoid arthritis. Drug toxicity was infrequent, and further studies in terms of long-term efficacy and toxicity, mechanism of action, and relative potency of minocycline versus other treatment modalities are warranted. The results of this trial were presented at the last American College of Rheumatology meeting in November in San Antonio, Texas, which Dr. Kaplan attended. The manuscript is currently being processed for publication. As always, he was not disappointed in the results of the trial, nor in its reception, because of his ever-inquisitive and thought-provoking mind. I would like to end by saying that you continue to stimulate and provoke us to think for a very long time to come.
As we've said, David was an endless source of new ideas and refreshingly different ways to look at data. His creativity, in fact, may have been enhanced by his lack of formal training in statistics. He never seemed to be constrained by accepted methodology or formal dogma. I'd like to give you a glimpse into that creativity by reading to you his thoughts on a different approach to analysis of the mirror data. His argument was sufficiently cogent to convince the study statistician to provide him with the raw data before the code was broken. And he reasoned, suppose one compared a drug to a placebo in some disease, and you didn't know which patient got drug and which patient got placebo, and you plotted percent improvement versus number of patients improved. And you get a picture like this, the top picture. Could you conclude that there was maybe, or probably, or certainly no difference between placebo and drug in response, as opposed to getting a picture like this, the bottom graph? As you can see, drawn in David's hand, as he did all the time. Can one conclude, again, without knowing who got drug and who got placebo, that one is better than the other? If so, is the amount of separation between the peaks or the heights of the peaks a measure of drug effectiveness compared to placebo? Another question David poses. Suppose in this study 10 joints get better and 2 joints get worse, particularly if those 2 joints were rated 0 at the onset and now are active. Is it really rational to say that the drug is suppressing disease activity? If you have a big right CVA, and while your left hemisphere is getting better, you have a small left CVA, are you getting better?